Good morning and welcome to Live from FM 91, conversation and performance with some of the area's finest musicians and visiting guest artists. I'm your host, Brad Cresswell, and we're coming to you today from the Dana Performance Studio here at WGTE. I'm very pleased to say that we've got singers in the house, we have a stage director in the house, we have a pianist in the house, because we are previewing Toledo Opera's production of Tosca. It's happening October 18th. And also on October 20th. I believe the show times are October 18th is a Friday at 7:30 p.m. And the following Sunday, the 20th, will be a matinee performance. That is at 2 o'clock p.m. And it's happening at the Valentine Theatre. You can find tickets at 419-255-SING or ToledoOpera.org. I'm very happy to welcome Lindsey Anderson, who is singing the title role of Tosca, Brendan Boyle as Cavaradossi, and Corey Crider as Scarpia. We also have the stage director, Jeffrey Buchman, who is a Toledo Opera favorite here, and another Toledo Opera favorite, well, he was the artistic administrator, that is Kevin Bilsma at the piano. So let's talk a little bit about Tosca. I asked you before, Lindsey, who is Tosca, right? I'm going to save that question. I want to talk to the other two guys a little bit about their characters first, and then we'll come back to, the title role, right?
Sounds good.
So, Brendan, who is Cavaradossi in this opera?
Cavaradossi is a painter who accidentally gets wrapped up in a political revolution. So he
hate when that happens.
Yeah, I know. What a drag, right?
Yeah.
But his former friend Angelotti, he finds him in the church hiding and recognizes him from the past and helps him escape from the political authorities. It's centered around the Napoleonic Wars, as you know. So that gets Mario in trouble, and
the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah. Corey, you're playing the role of Scarpia now. You
Yes.
and Cavaradossi don't get along, obviously. I wonder if you've done this role many times before. I wonder if you can tell us what your idea of Scarpia is.
Well, the nuts and bolts, just in the plot, is Scarpia is the leader of those, at least the enforcement branch of those political authorities in Rome at the time that Brendan was mentioning. He's aligned with the side opposing Napoleon during those Napoleonic Wars, and he is certainly one of those hard-nosed types who is out to find, smoke out the rebellious people, the people on the other side, the political. On the other side of the political spectrum there, and he is willing to use everything in his power to get them and bring them to justice as he sees it.
We have the stage director here, Jeff Buchman, and I wonder if you could answer this question for me, because Tosca is one of those super popular operas. I mean, you've done very popular operas here. You've done Carmen, you did La Bohème, you did Trovatore, right?
That's right.
And you're doing Tosca. Why is this so popular? What is the attraction for Tosca?
Well, it's so interesting. Every time I deal with these operas that are so popular, I ask the same question. It's the same with Bohème. I think, well, what's the draw? Why is everybody so excited to come to the theater to experience what ultimately ends in quite tragic circumstances? And that's the case with Tosca. And I think the answer is that opera offers such an incredibly powerful human experience that we are excited to take these journeys that take us to places that there's actual visceral reaction to these human experiences that happens through the unamplified human voice going through these tragic experiences. We get to sense a couple in their beautiful state of love at the beginning of the opera, and then have to follow them through tremendous tragic events, sacrifice. It's just it embodies such an incredible journey that we, the audience, it's just you just say to these artists, "Take my soul on this journey," and it's so pleasurable. But if you just look at the stories themselves, it's quite puzzling why we're so excited to come back to the theater to experience them, and it's because of the incredibly moving and visceral way that opera can tell story.
Yeah, and the voices, obviously. I mean, you need three powerhouse leads for this opera. There's also a chorus, etc. But, it's iconic, the arias, and we're going to hear some of those in a moment. Is this a traditional production?
It is.
Yeah.
This is a story that's so rooted in a specific time period. You ask a lot of an audience to shift period. So for me, it works really well, keeping it in period and really just concentrating on these characters and all the twists and turns in their journey throughout the evening.
Well, let's hear some music, and I'd like to go in chronological order. So we'll start with Corey. What are you going to sing for us?
I'll be singing the Te Deum from the end of Act 1. Scarpia comes in hunting Angelotti specifically. He doesn't find him there at the church, but he does end up running into Tosca. And so he has a bit of a interaction with her, kind of seeing if she knows anything. She ends up leaving after he has planted some thoughts of jealousy in her mind, because he has found that Cavaradossi has been in the church and has been involved with painting a particular lady, the Marchesa Lattavanti. And he knows that Tosca is quite the spitfire, and he knows that Tosca loves Cavaradossi, so he can place in her mind that there is some stuff going on between those other two and get her kind of up in arms. He succeeds at that, and then a Te Deum is happening to celebrate a victory that has occurred in the Napoleonic Wars on his side. And while the people are coming into the church and the choir and they're having their Te Deum, he is singing about some things that are quite profane rather than sacred, about his nefarious and vile desires for Tosca and what he wishes to, how he wishes to have her.
This is a Te Deum from the first act of the opera Tosca by Giacomo Puccini. Corey Crider is singing the role of Scarpia, Kevin Bilsma at the piano, here on FM 91.
Tre sbirri, una carrozza, presto, seguila dovunque vada, non visto provvedi. Palazzo Farnese, va Tosca, nel tuo cuor s'annida Scarpia. Va Tosca, è Scarpia che scioglie a volvi il falco della tua gelosia. Quanta promessa nel tuo pronto sospetto, nel tuo cuore s'annida Scarpia. Va Tosca, a doppia mira te
We've heard the Te Deum sung in our performance studio by Corey Crider, who plays the role of Scarpia in Toledo Opera's Tosca. Kevin Bilsma at the piano. You can find more information about these performances. They're a week from today, October 18th at 7:30 p.m. and October 20th at 2 p.m. That's a matinee performance at the Valentine Theatre. And you can find tickets and information at 419-255-SING or go online to their website at toledoopera.org. In addition to Corey Crider, I've got Brendan Boyle here, who sings the role of Cavaradossi, and Lindsey Anderson, who is our Tosca. Welcome back to Toledo. You were here for the Ballad of Baby Doe, right?
Yes, thank you, Brad.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you. And we talked a little bit about this on the podcast, right? Opera Out of the Box. We talked about your vision of Tosca, and I'm curious, has it changed at all since we talked? And you're going through rehearsals, you're working with a stage director, you're working with people who have done this before, this opera. This is your first time.
Yes.
So how do you view La Tosca, let's say now? How are you
It
feeling
has
here?
changed slightly, but the idea of her being a character for the ages, really. She is a woman who, transcends time. It's a woman who feels comfortable being fully vulnerable, comfortable being emotional when some people may think that's inappropriate, passionate, comfortable, experiencing and communicating her anger at things. And of course, the nuances of experiencing that and how I relay that to the audience has changed with my colleagues and with Jeff's direction. I've learned a lot of different new nuances that I hadn't thought of previously.
Yeah, we're excited about that. And we're excited to see you perform this role for the first time. I mean, normally you kind of gravitate between mezzo and soprano roles, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah, so this is about as soprano as you can get.
It is.
Yeah. Let's hear what your aria is. I mean, you say Tosca. Tosca's aria, the only one she has is Vici d'arte. I lived for art. I lived for, all these things. Can you put it in context for us before we hear it?
Yeah, I mean, we hear this in, commonly in pasta commercials, and, it's very, very popular in pop culture. But within the context of the opera, it's a very different situation. She's in the midst of this very intense experience with Scarpia, who's effectively hunting her and offering a very, very vile bargain for her to save her love. And in this moment, she is making the decision as to what she will do, and she ultimately decides that she will do this to save Cavaradossi. But in this moment, she's reflecting on the fact that she's lived a beautiful life, a life where she has respected others, been an empathetic human, been kind, and now she finds herself in this moment where she is being punished, but I mean, there was nothing that she did wrong. So it's quite a moment in the opera.
I love this character being like a diva within a diva kind of thing going on there.
Yes.
I mean, how do you bring to life this character that is so rich and then illustrated with Puccini's magnificent music? I mean, how do you do that from the standpoint of an artist and from the standpoint of just a person who's trying to get through it?
There's a lot of very nuanced choices you need to make, but the music does most of it for you. Puccini wrote all of those nuances, so you just have to discover what they mean to you and how the audience can, to make sure the audience understands your presentation of that in the moment, in the context of the moment.
This is Vici d'arte, I Have Lived for Art by Giacomo Puccini from his opera Tosca. Lindsey Anderson, who is performing Tosca for the first time with Toledo Opera. Kevin Bilsma at the piano here on Live from FM 91. That's an aria from the opera Tosca, which is happening at Toledo Opera next week, October 18th at 7:30 p.m. and October 20th at 2 o'clock p.m. at the Valentine Theatre. You can find your tickets at 419-255-SING, that's 7464, or at toledoopera.org. We've just heard Lindsey Anderson performing the title role of Tosca, singing that wonderful aria Vici d'arte with Kevin Bilsma at the piano. And now we're going to turn our attention to the tenor, last but not least, right? We're talking with Brendan Boyle now about the character of Cavaradossi, who has all these great arias, at least two of them. We're going to hear the second one. I wonder if you can tell me about essaying this role for the very first time, right?
Yeah. Yep, first time. Yeah, Puccini loved a tenor, so I get 2 arias. But so this is the Act 2 aria, where Cavaradossi is just Act 3 aria. Oh, thank you. Act 3 aria. Yeah, so he's just got a favor from the jailer to write a letter to Tosca, as he knows that he's going to be executed now. So this is his letter and his final farewell to Tosca as he confronts the reality that he's never going to see her again, and sort of discovers then that he has never loved life more than he does right now.
Yeah.
So making it all the more painful.
Yeah, it's a very dramatic moment. I mean, only followed by more dramatic moments. No
Yeah.
spoilers here, but
yeah, it has something that sets it apart, I think, from a lot of the other Puccini tenor characters and arias, where, and even some of the Verdi, so the ones that I can think of where the soprano dies, or there's that relationship there, but it seems like it's usually not functional. Like they had a part where they didn't get along, and you know that if she lived, they wouldn't be together. Like they're not going to get married. It's not going to work out. They're just together now at the end because she's dying and everyone's sad. But Tosca and Cavaradossi really seem to have a complementary relationship where they, like, her faults, if you want to call them that, he loves that about her, and they each know exactly what to say to get the other one out of the funk they're in, or that you see moments like that throughout the show. So it has a different level of tragedy, I think, knowing that that this could be a relationship that works out. Like maybe they were going to go get married and run off if everything didn't fall apart.
Oh, well. Well, here it starts to fall apart now with this aria, E lucevano le stelle, the stars were shining, sort of a memory piece. Brendan Boyle is the role of Cavaradossi. He's singing this aria along with Kevin Bilsma at the piano here on FM 91.
O dolci baci, languide carezze, mentre fremente le belle forme di
That was tenor Brendan Boyle singing the third act aria E lucevano le stelle, or The Stars Were Shining. That's from the opera Tosca by Giacomo Puccini. Brendan Boyle singing the role of Cavaradossi and Kevin Bilsma at the piano. This opera is happening next week, October 18th at 7:30 p.m. That's a Friday night. And October 20th is a Sunday afternoon. There's a matinee at 2 o'clock p.m. at the Valentine Theatre. You can get more information and tickets at 419-255-SING, that's 7464, or ToledoOpera.org. We'll do a little experiment here. I want to go around with the three singers. You've got the director here, and it's a forum. So if you have one question that you want to know about the opera or the rehearsal process or anything like that, ask Jeffrey now. And who wants to start?
I'll have a bunch of them in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, right. Let's start with Tosca.
A question for Jeff?
Yeah, if you have a question for him about the process.
How many Toscas have you done so far?
Well, this is my third production. but it's not really only my third, because I also started as a singer, so I had opportunities to do some of the supporting roles as a singer as well. When I won the Pavarotti competition, one of the prizes for winning that competition was doing performances with him. So I did the Act 3 of Tosca with him. But if you know Spoletta, and there's a lot of story there, but Spoletta has very little to do in Act 3. But this was a process with him where I started as a baritone in his competition, and he had helped transition me to tenor by the final round, and I ended up winning that as a tenor. Did not stay there very long because it's not where I belonged. But so I had that insight into the show as well, and I did Spoletta and Angelotti, a strange mixture. I did that in Tulsa as well. So I've had a lot of experience with the show, but my path through, when I come to a show to direct it, I really walk the path of every single character over and over in my head and in my body before I get to the place where I work with them. So for me, it's not so important how many times I've done a production before, because I think my preparation is the same regardless. But I mean, to answer your questions, it's been 2 directing, and I'm excited to have this 3rd one. And I'll just say to the audience that sometimes we think, well, I've seen Tosca before, I don't think I'll go see it again. You have to know that this is an art form that is entirely dependent on the chemistry of the mixture of the individual artists that a company brings together. And in this case, Toledo Opera brought together an incredible mix of talent, and the dynamic is very subtly different depending on that mixture of people. And I'm really proud of the talent they brought together, and would encourage anyone to come out to see this production.
Wow. That's great. Brendan, you have a question for...
I've got 2 questions,
for Jeff.
if you don't mind.
You're a tenor. You're allowed.
Okay, great.
2 arias, 2 questions.
Yes.
So who, besides me, of course, was your favorite Cavaradossi ever?
You can't ask him a question like that.
And
Brendan Boyle.
No, I said besides me.
That's right.
And who do you think, for you as a director, is the hardest character in this show to get? I'm sure it varies for the singers, but like to get really locked in and for the performance, like locked in and complete for the performance.
I'm going to start with the second question first. You know, the show is called Tosca. Tosca has a really rough journey to go through. She's reacting to forces that are constantly being put on her. But the more complex character really is Scarpia. Scarpia is constantly remeasuring how to get where he wants to get. And I think the nuance that has to happen in a Scarpia for the Tosca to work, it's tremendous, that world. And so I think that's the hardest, and in this case I think we have a spectacular Scarpia who's thought very carefully through the many options. And that's the beauty of the work that we do, is that there is no single answer, and on any given day he can take a slightly different path to get to where he wants to, and then Tosca has the opportunity in that moment to react differently perhaps than she ever thought she would, and it all is evoked through the voice. This is a really spectacular art form where the color of the voice is carrying so much of the weight of the drama. And so one of the thrills of my life is just to plant seeds in singers' minds and then see where they go with it, and then see how it manifests both in sound and in physical tension and compelling drama. I'm going to still deny answering the first question.
You have a pass on that first question. Well, we heard some very flattering things about you, Corey. I wonder if you have a question for Jeff that doesn't have to do with other baritones.
Right. I was wondering, Jeff, if a particular fun story, occurrence, anecdote in your experiences with Tosca, not necessarily just as a director, but in all the Toscas in which you've been involved, comes to mind. Something that's either special, sentimental, funny, what have you.
Well, we all know the anecdote of the supers that were told to just follow Tosca, and that was meant to be on the entrance. People jump, but but that has not happened in my experience. It's the thing I would share about anecdote-wise on Tosca is that there's real danger involved. What these singers have to go through on stage is quite challenging and quite demanding, and is dangerous. In a show where there's a stabbing involved, there's real danger, and we all know that. When a tenor is actually having guns shot at him, albeit blanks or black powder with cotton wads stuffed in there, it's a dangerous world, the theater. And every time I step into a Tosca, I think about that and think that we will make sure our world is safe first, and then we're going to tell a really dramatic, compelling story. But I'm always conscious of what they risk when they step in onto the stage to do these kinds of roles.
Yeah. Obviously, your experience as a former singer has played into your career as a director, right?
I hope so.
Bravo. Well, we've had a great discussion, and I think there are certainly more questions to have, but we want to let you know that Tosca is happening a week from today, actually, October 18th at 7:30 p.m. and October 20th at 2 p.m. at the Valentine Theatre. You can get tickets if you haven't already at 419-255-SING. That's SING, or the numbers if you prefer, 7464, or you can go online to ToledoOpera.org. My thanks to Lindsey Anderson and Brendan Boyle and Corey Crider, the three singers behind the lead roles in the opera Tosca, as well as the stage director Jeffrey Buchman, and to Kevin Bilsma, who's been at the piano for our singers this morning. Thanks, guys, so much for joining us here on Live from FM 91.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
You've been listening to Live from FM 91, and the broadcast engineer for our program was Chris Pfeiffer. I'm your host and producer, Brad Cresswell. Thanks for joining us today here on your public radio station, FM 91.